Hello, everyone. New Zealand has arrived, delivering a truly devastating blow to Putin's invasion. Ladies and gentlemen, the Russia-Ukraine war is not only taking place in muddy trenches, but is also fiercely erupting in the shadows of cyberspace and transnational financial flows. Do you believe that a peaceful country like New Zealand, thousands of miles away from the battlefield, could shake the Kremlin? A country famous for its peace in the Southern Hemisphere has just made a bold move, delivering a deadly blow to the most critical weaknesses of Russia's war machine. This action is not simply about supporting Ukraine, it is truly a geopolitical earthquake that pushes Vladimir Putin into a dilemma with three unprecedented tough challenges. The entire covert operational network of Russia, from cyber attack campaigns and illegal payment channels to supply routes for components through third countries, has now been targeted. This is an extremely significant step for Kyiv. This new sanctions package carries a completely different tone compared to anything Wellington has ever implemented before. On May 7, it was officially announced that New Zealand had launched a series of new sanctions, directly targeting about 20 individuals and entities that the country identified as the most dangerous accomplices to the invasion of Ukraine. New Zealand's Foreign Minister, Mr. Winston Peters, affirmed that this is the 35th round of sanctions, a record number that demonstrates the determination to punish Putin and his close associates. However, this time the goal is not only to punish for past mistakes, but to completely eliminate those who are quietly operating the foundations for cybercrime and sophisticated methods of invasion, which would not be possible without the assistance of these individuals. The focus of this attack is on the operators of cyber platforms that are supporting Russian hacker groups and cyber criminals. Also, alternative payment providers, which have helped Russia bypass traditional financial system gaps, are now being tightly restricted. More notably, New Zealand has decided to target third countries that act as intermediaries, specializing in buying and reselling military components and equipment that Russia can no longer purchase directly from the international market. It can be said that Putin has just taken a heavy blow without a single real bullet being fired. Before delving into these three main points of attack, Foreign Minister Winston Peters sent a strong message that made the 20 names on the blacklist tremble with fear. He declared that anyone who uses online platforms to support Russia's war against Ukraine will face devastating consequences, and New Zealand is directly dismantling the infrastructure and payment systems that are fueling this war machine. This is how a small nation is contributing to the collapse of Russia's massive military-industrial complex. Bad actors from countries like Iran and North Korea are also not exempt from the wave of sanctions, as New Zealand continues to build on more than 2,000 previously issued sanctions to strike directly at supply chains at their source. Looking back at recent history, we can see that New Zealand has accelerated at a rapid pace. Just this February, they imposed sanctions on 23 individuals and 13 companies from Russia and Iran. During that round, they also dealt a heavy blow to Putin's oil front by joining the European Union and setting a price cap of $44.1 for Russian oil. To rub salt into the Kremlin's wound, New Zealand also sanctioned 100 ships from Putin's shadow fleet, which are often used to transport smuggled oil. In previous blacklists, we saw the inclusion of members of the Russian intelligence service, 3 Iranian citizens involved in drone production, and even the heads of the Gaziantep cryptocurrency exchange, who helped funnel money into Russia despite the sanctions. This 35th sanctions package is a perfect continuation of the crackdown on cryptocurrency transactions and Russia's financial tricks, but it carries an even deeper significance. Many people may wonder why just 20 new names are so important when Russia is already the most sanctioned country in the world. According to a report from Customs Custodian AI, Putin and his associates are facing up to 165 sanctions, with nearly 24,000 imposed since the war began. The answer lies in the strategic shift in New Zealand's 35th sanctions package. They are no longer just targeting the big players, but are now cracking down on anyone who helps Russia wage hybrid warfare against Ukraine. Let's look at the cybercrime sanctions. These criminals help Putin plunge the Ukrainian people into darkness in the literal sense, while also carrying out a second mission, spreading disinformation throughout the West to divide support for Kyiv. Operating from the shadows and always anonymously, These individuals have exploited IPN addresses and platforms that provide anonymous access and control servers to carry out sabotage without leaving a trace. When a cyber attacker fails to infiltrate, they are completely neutralized, and that is the core purpose of this campaign. What Russian hackers have done over the past 4 years is not just simple acts of sabotage, but a systematic destruction targeting Ukraine and directly threatening the stability of the entire Western Bloc. According to reports from the Atlantic Council, since that time, the cyber war launched by Russia against Ukraine and its allies has only escalated and has not cooled down at all. Russia frequently coordinates devastating physical attacks with sophisticated digital campaigns, using malware, phishing tactics, and a massive disinformation network to infiltrate systems and weaken Ukraine's defenses right before waves of missiles and drones strike. Data from international cybercrime monitoring centers has revealed a very grim reality in just the first quarter of 2026. The number of cyber attacks targeting Ukrainian facilities has surged by 34% compared to the same period last year. Most of these attacks originate directly from Russia or through third countries that are providing technical support to Putin's hackers. This is evidence that Russia is putting all its efforts into a strategy they believe is causing massive destruction. That is why New Zealand's latest sanctions carry a noble mission: to take the sword out of the enemy's hand, help to ease the tremendous pressure that Ukraine is enduring. But the impact of this story goes even further. We are standing at the threshold of the first full-scale cyber war in human history, just as scholars at University College London have warned. The seeds of chaos sown in 2014 have now grown into dangerous threats. Attacks on the power grid, financial markets, or military communications are real threats that could cause economic collapse and mass casualties. Anonymity and rapid spread make these attacks hard to trace and respond to, putting the West on red alert. King's College London analysis says these disinformation campaigns are more than a passing trend. It's not just about military actions, but also a poisonous arrow aimed directly at the foundations of democracy. The information space has now truly become a fierce geopolitical battlefield. The actual figures are even more shocking, as in just 1 year there have been as many as 505 recorded cases of foreign interference and information manipulation being recorded. With an average frequency of nearly 1.4 times per day, the seeds of these campaigns target hundreds of national financial institutions, creating tens of thousands of pieces of false content to poison public opinion. This is a shadow war besieging the European Union, using every tactic from sabotage, forgery, to inciting outrage, aiming to punish any country that supports Ukraine. The masterminds hope that this constant chaos and pressure will make Ukraine's allies exhausted and withdraw. However, the decisive actions of the
Lực không ngừng này sẽ khiến các đồng minh của
experts have proven otherwise. These sanctions are not only tools to crack down on cybercriminals, but also affirm the spirit of international solidarity. The core of the Scholars Alliance has shown that in order to respond when facing a superpower, it is not always necessary to fire heavy artillery or confront directly on the battlefield. By directly attacking the digital platforms that are the stronghold of Russian cybercriminals, New Zealand is breaking the chain instead of confronting directly on the battlefield. By directly attacking the digital platforms that are the stronghold of criminals, it has overcome Putin's seeds. This action not only increases the operating costs for the war machine, but also directly protects Ukraine. It ensures that the flow of support from Western allies will not be choked off by attacks from the shadows. This is a feint that has already been choked off by attacks from the shadows. This is a cunning move, forcing Russia's digital phantoms to handle it on their own. They must overcome it.
càng khan hiếm và đắt đỏ.
New vulnerabilities are becoming increasingly scarce and expensive. However, New Zealand's ambitions are for the strategic target in this round of sanctions is the covert financial channels that Russia is still using. The strategic target in this round of sanctions is the underground financial channels that Russia uses to bypass international embargoes. According to reports from NewsKey, a massive sanctions package has been set up to tightly lock down a specific company that specializes in providing alternative payment solutions for Russia. These are the backdoors that allow Moscow to stay outside the traditional banking system and continue to profit from exports. Every penny withdrawn through these unofficial channels eventually gets funneled into the war machine, used to purchase sophisticated electronic components from third countries for the production of weapons of destruction. The connection between these payment platforms and the suffering that Ukraine is enduring is extremely close. For many years, Russia has continuously promoted a multipolar financial system, and now we clearly understand why they had to do this to survive the Western blockade. Going back in history to 2017, Russia quietly developed a financial messaging system called SPFS with the goal of replacing the global SWIFT network. As of 2023, this highly localized platform has attracted the participation of 400 financial institutions. Moscow also introduced the Mir card to rival Visa and MasterCard and focused on the BGX Block's electronic bridge project. The Kremlin's message remains clear. The world should end the dominance of the dollar and ruble.
Thế giới cần thoát khỏi sự thống trị của đồng đô la và đồng euro.
Behind the rhetoric about economic autonomy, Vladimir Putin understands very clearly that Western currencies are too easily frozen, while the systems he controls serve as a safe haven for illicit funds. Since the invasion began, cryptocurrency has become the new lifeline that Russia clings to in order to survive. In the center of Moscow, the Federation Tower stands tall. According to legal records, this is also the headquarters of the world's most advanced sanctions evasion network. In this tower alone, a capital flow worth $200 billion has been pumped into Russia by October 2025. This is possible thanks to a complex cryptocurrency transaction system that uses data mixing tools to erase all traces. In reality, Russia is carrying out a large-scale money laundering campaign, turning dirty money into untraceable assets, which then flow through shell companies to pay for military operations or purchase equipment from abroad. These cryptocurrency networks once rendered sanctions useless, but that's exactly why New Zealand decided to take action with its third and most decisive sanctions package. By targeting the core platform, Wellington is sending a strong warning to anyone intending to assist Moscow. The price of circumventing the law will be extremely high. Putin clearly does not want to see American financial tools being attacked, as he is leading Russia deeper into an unprecedented economic abyss. According to data from Reuters, the Russian economy declined by 0.3% in the first quarter of 2026. This is the first drop since 2023, signaling serious cracks in the internal structure. This is a sign of a severe cost of living crisis. The people as domestic businesses are exhausted because Putin has poured all remaining resources into the military gamble. When all the eggs are put into the defense industry basket, Russia is sacrificing its long-term future for unrealistic ambitions on the battlefield. History has shown that New Zealand's new approach is not a far-fetched fantasy. Looking back at what happened in 2025, Canada and Australia implemented similar sanctions that allowed them to freeze assets worth more than $180 million. This is a telling figure, demonstrating the power of international coordination in choking off the opponent's finances. New Zealand is hoping to achieve a similar result, or at least cut off another vital channel that Russia is using to maintain its cash flow. The rules of economic warfare are very simple, but harsh. The more Russian routes are blocked, the greater the impact on Russia's economy, the more devastating it becomes. And when the treasury runs dry, Putin will no longer be able to supply weapons and the necessary equipment to the soldiers struggling on the front lines. Besides that, we can't ignore the actors from third countries, those who have just been put on the blacklist by New Zealand. These are crucial links in the Kremlin's sanctions evasion ecosystem. However, the greatest danger from these individuals and organizations in third countries is that they are directly fueling the Russian military by providing access to essential components that Russia desperately needs to maintain its war machine. The operating mechanism of this network is extremely sophisticated and calculated. To manufacture cruise missiles and other high-tech weapons of war, Russia needs a large amount of specialized materials, from minerals, rare earths, and specialized software to electronic microchips. These are core components that any country would impose sanctions on against Russia. In a situation where they cannot buy directly, Russia often relies on third countries. These countries will carry out purchases under the guise of serving domestic needs. But right after that, they will be transferred to Russia for a profit. In exchange for this assistance, Putin is willing to pay prices much higher than the market rate, turning profit into a powerful incentive for profiteers to get around sanctions. At this point, alternative payment platforms and cybercriminal networks step in to conceal the true nature of these financial transactions. It is important to objectively recognize that not every country in this complex supply network shares the same ideals as Iran or North Korea, who have openly supported Russia directly. However, the problem lies with the profiteers. From individual actors to large-scale businesses, They are willing to buy goods from countries sanctioning Russia and then resell them for profit. They are the ones directly abetting the invasion of Ukraine. All of this creates a muddy quagmire, shadow fleets, and shadowy streams of electronic money. But with the third sanctions package, New Zealand is making a decisive cut through that fog to strike directly at the source. By targeting the wallets of these entities, New Zealand is taking away their biggest motivation: profit. When the cost of aiding Russia becomes much higher than the money earned, these shadowy actors will be forced to withdraw from the game. With just a stroke of the pen and a firm public statement, New Zealand has dealt a heavy blow to the shadowy arm, the financial network and the shadow supply chain that Russia has painstakingly built around the world. The true masterminds have experienced defeat from a country thousands of miles away. And surely New Zealand will not stop there, but will continue to hunt for the next targets to tighten the sanctions noose. While New Zealand can hurt the Kremlin without firing a shot, other countries are providing Ukraine with much more direct and lethal support on the ground. Sweden is a prime example, as they have just handed over to Ukraine what is called the magical spear of Odin. Ngunhia has appeared in Ukraine and is tearing apart Russian forces with tremendous power. So, in your opinion, are economic and technological sanctions from small but capable countries like New Zealand actually more effective than heavy weaponry in stopping Russia's advance?